Sorry. Briley was about to puke. So I had to be like, no, move to the hardwood floors. Okay, sorry, everyone. Hi. Hi, thanks for covering for me, guest. Okay, let's regroup. Hi, everybody. My name is Barrett, Laurie. Thanks for joining us for Gut Instinct. I'm going to do a quick intro, and then I'm going to let my lovely guest, Morgan, intro herself. And then we're going to jump into talking all about Crohn's disease. I've got some specific questions about neurodivergence and how those intersect. And so let's start saying hello to people in chat. I'll do my little intro and then we'll get going. Please leave a cue in front of your questions, and then we will, I think Morgan has power here as well. I know you do. So we'll just star them as we both see good questions, and we'll come to them at the end. This never a truer statement spoken. I heard the and I was like, no. So yeah. So anyway, Regina feels me. Okay. So first in was Margaret Pinard, but her comment already disappeared. It was a few days ago. Thanks for popping by early, Margaret. We love you and appreciate you. Thank you so much. Margaret will be here for karaoke Saturday, so come join us for that. It'll be lots of fun. Hi, JC. Thanks for getting your coffee at this time of day. Ma'am, I would be in trouble. First of all, that'd probably cause me to have a Crohnie poo. Uncontrolled. But good. I'm glad you got what you need to be comfy. I got some peppermint tea, but left it on the stove. Go me. Hi, Regina. Hi. Good to see you. Cool gamer. Hey, friend. Good to see you. All right. Who else have I missed? Anybody? All right. Everybody's chattering amongst themselves. This is a good time to jump in. So real quick, oh my, it was a late one. I guess you worked late. All right. Proud of you. Just woke up an hour ago. Wow. All right. Well, I'm going to read the intro. Going to let Morgan intro, and then we will just launch into our questions. So welcome, my fellow warriors of the gut. It's time to tune in to Gut Instinct, the podcast that's all about Crohn's disease, disability, pride, and the unapologetic ramblings of the chronically ill. I am your fearless host, Barrett Laurie, serving up a cocktail of sass, wit, and a whole lot of real talk. And guess what? We've got a special guest in the house this week, indie author sensation and editor Morgan Lee. Thank you for being here. So grab your heating pad, cozy up in your favorite blanket fort, and let's dive into a world where vulnerability is power and laughter is the best medicine. Let's show the world what it means to be #chronically fabulous. Hi, Morgan.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk
about
this today.
I know, me too. I've been dying to get you on here since I started this because, of course. But first, why don't you do like a basic intro about like your channel and stuff so people know where to find you online. I've linked to all of Morgan's places in the description box below. And you take it away and then we'll dive in.
Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Morgan Lee. I am an indie author and an editor. I have 2 books out, the first 2 in a dark fantasy trilogy, Seed Among the Thorns and Seed Among the Rocks, with Seed Among Good Ground coming out later this year. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about my writing journey as well as mental health, Crohn's disease. A lot of stuff is over there on that channel, so you can check that out. And yeah, and I'm pretty much on every social media at Author Morgan Lee.
Yes. Well, and get out there and buy book 3 because it's going to drop.
Yes.
We're not telling you when, but it's coming.
Sometime.
It's coming sometime. Well, so my first question always, and I kind of know this story because we're, besties for the resties in real life, but out of the folks here who haven't heard your story, what would you kind of give us your Crohn's story in your own words?
All right.
We got plenty of time.
Story.
We got plenty of time. You can abridge it, whatever you want.
Okay. So I was diagnosed with Crohn's in December of 2010 during my, I think, sophomore year of college.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was 20 years old when I was diagnosed, and I first started having symptoms, I think, back when I was 16 in high school, but they weren't gut symptoms. They were just signs of inflammation in my body. So I had a lot of episcleritis flares in my eyes that they didn't know why I was getting those. And I didn't start manifesting gut symptoms until college.
Interesting. Do you think there's any connection for that? Like looking back on it, do you think there was any, I mean, obviously college is a different kind of stressful time, But do you attribute it to stress or just changes in environment kind of um, led it that direction, or do you think it was just a natural progression?
I think that it was the stress of being, um, in college, in a new place by myself, and then I had a lot of, issues, like, with, my roommate because I had went there with a friend from high school, and then she kinda kicked me out of her life, and then I had to,
Oh,
like, find my, like,
all
footing
new
again.
friends. Yeah,
Yeah, and I had to find, like, friends and try to find where I belonged and try to acclimate to this college life, and it was just
right.
really it was really hard and a really stressful time, and I think that attributed to why it kinda kicked off, what ignited the
Yeah.
spark.
So when it did go sideways on you, how did your gut symptoms manifest? Like how did it present for you?
For me, it was a lot of intense, abdominal pain.
Mhm.
I couldn't eat, and anything that I ate would immediately hurt my stomach,
Gas. Oh,
so much,
okay.
and like, because I don't remember if in the beginning I had more diarrhea symptoms, but as my Crohn's, like, progressed, mine leaned more towards constipation than
Oh, okay.
diarrhea. But I think in the
Interesting.
beginning, everything kinda ran through,
Yeah.
pretty quickly, and, so abdominal pain, couldn't eat anything, and I was losing a lot of weight. I think the first time before I was diagnosed, I lost about 30 pounds, and in
Wow.
college, I was 110. I'm 5'1" and
Wow.
110 pounds, so
Yeah.
losing 30 is very significant.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a lot of my symptoms, and then, bloody,
Yeah. Stools and all
bleeding
that fun
in
part.
the rectum.
Um, well, and let's dive into that. I'm just kidding. Um, no, let's talk about the weight loss because I'm curious. I've kind of talked a little bit about my experience with like when I'd be in flare, I'd be much more sensitive about talking about my weight. Um, just because it usually opened the door to having to have a conversation I really didn't want to have with anybody because I didn't know what it was at the time. And then, people make assumptions, whatever. I'm wondering how that worked for you, especially being in like a sorority, like where were so closely connected with people. Was the losing weight an issue at all? Like, was that a part? Was that ever an issue for you as far as people making uncomfortable assumptions, um, or because you knew what it was it a little easier to navigate that?
So, at that time, I didn't know what it was.
Oh,
Mm.
okay,
Yeah, because it took me a long probably the whole year of 2010, is when, like, my symptoms were really flaring and, like,
yeah.
all that stuff. So, I didn't know what it was, and when I went to the doctor, they kind of dismissed it and was
Oh,
like,
don't you love that? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so, like, they ran some basic tests, like, testing me for celiac disease,
Hmm.
checking my thyroid function,
Yep.
and with those being normal, they were just like, I don't know." And then when I went to an actual GI, he didn't even run any tests, but he was like, I think you might have anorexia, so you might wanna go talk to a therapist and figure out and get that, situated." And so I kind of just ignored it,
Yeah.
and surprisingly, though, like, looking back, I was surprised no one, like, in my sorority
Said
mentioned
anything.
or said
Wow.
anything. So,
Wow.
looking back, I felt like, "Why didn't anybody say anything sooner?"
Yeah.
Um,
Especially 80 pounds, because that's thin.
yeah, and I look back at pictures and I'm just, like, sad
Yeah.
because, like, I look so ill and
Yeah.
nobody was saying anything, and
Yeah.
nobody was, like, helping me.
So what could you eat? What were you like, subsisting on essentially?
I don't even know, because
It's hard
like,
to
I feel
remember.
like I couldn't eat anything
Oh my
without it
gosh.
hurting because I had a
Okay.
blockage,
Oh,
So
you had like a stricture or
yeah,
something.
I had a stricture.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
like,
Okay.
that just attributed to the
Oh
pain.
yeah, of course.
Nothing was going like,
Oh wow.
nothing was edible.
Oh my God. And
Yeah.
how long did you have to live like that?
I would say probably end of 2009 all the way to end of 2020 or 2010.
Wow. Wow. So tell us about the diagnosis and how that finally came to be.
I'd reached a breaking point. Um,
Good.
December, like, I was, like, I guess, training to be in a beauty pageant that the campus was
Yeah.
doing. It's
Yeah.
the black and gold pageant. And so, like, as we're shopping for, swimsuit, because there's a swimsuit round, I'm like, I don't fit any of these swimsuits. I look gross. I don't want to be paraded on stage and
Yeah.
do this. And then it was just one night, like, my stomach pain was just really bad. I was sick to my stomach. I I threw up. Sorry, graphic, but this is
No, go for it. We love
talk.
graphic.
Like, like, threw up all over my bed, like, all over the wall, and I was just so weak.
You
I
couldn't get up.
just Yeah, I just called my mom, who was 2 hours away, and I was like, You just have to come get me because I need to go to the hospital." So she
Yeah.
came and um came and got me, drove me back home. I went to the hospital. They admitted me, and I think I stayed in the hospital for probably 5 days that first time, 4 or 5 days. All the tests, colonoscopies, CT
Yeah.
scans, MRIs,
MRI. Yeah. Yeah.
all of that, and that's when I was diagnosed with Crohn's.
Did anybody say feeding tube to you?
Not until the flare of 2015.
Okay, we'll get there. Okay, so pause. So now you're so you do finally get a diagnosis at that point.
Mhm.
You have a stricture. So first of all, I'm going to put Regina's comment up because yes, oh my God, do they let the stupidest students become GI specialists? My best friend forever was deathly ill and had to demand a colonoscopy because the GI dismissed her. Awkwardly, he was a kiss ass because she was so ulcerated. And I'm so sorry you had to go through all of that. What's wild, and this is the thing that I don't think I realized until I joined this community. My cousin had Crohn's, that he was diagnosed when we were like in our 20s. And he kept saying to me, there's no clean test. So it's like they don't, and that's true, right? It's not like cancer where they can like run some blood tests and your white cell count might indicate something that'll lead to something. It's not quite like that. It's a very subjective, um, what's the word, Morgan, I'm looking for? Diagnosis process, right? So
You have to, like,
that's what's
put all
so
the pieces, like, together.
together, right? And someone has to pick up on all of them at the same
Yeah.
time, which is what's so difficult because the thing about, and this is the thing I think I spend the most time explaining to people, a flare is so unpredictable. I can have a day where I will have bloody diarrhea for an entire day. And the very next day when I get in to see my GI, I'll be fine. Like that's the crazy thing about it. And then but before you're diagnosed, getting people to believe you, and that sounds truly nuts, but I cannot tell you how many times I was dismissed out of like emergency room situations because they were like, well, I don't think you were probably seeing blood, or you would be having X, or it's just amazing how often you're dismissed in those
Yeah, or you
situations.
can't be in that much pain.
Yes, right. It can't be that
It
bad,
can't be that
right?
bad. You're
Because
overreacting.
they think you're drug seeking, or at least that's
Mhm.
how I was made to feel a
Yeah,
lot.
me too.
And no, I have a concrete truck in my stomach. Like it's like I've eaten a briar patch and am now trying to like digest it.
Yeah.
So yes, yes. So that's frustrating. Okay, so you finally have a diagnosis. You know what it is. So
Mhm.
now what? So it's all sunshine and roses, or what is the next? What gets you out of the hospital and back on track to like being able to eat, getting the stricture to open back up? Because for those out there that don't know, there are lots of options to turn a stricture around, and
Mhm.
usually they try a medication option first, with either a steroid like to throw at it, and then some like biologics, or biologics and like a suppressant, immunosuppressant. Just depends. There's lots of different
Yeah.
ways to go at it. So what was the way they ate your Reese's?
So I started with prednisone,
Didn't we
and
all?
I was in the world of not very many biologic options when I was diagnosed.
Oh,
Back in
okay.
2010, there was only Remicade and Humira that they were
Oh,
really
wow.
using.
Yeah.
Um, so like all the other stuff that exists now wasn't a thing.
Right.
Um, so I don't know the order of medications, but I've been on Pentasa, which is
I don't know that
mesalamine.
one. I don't
Yeah,
even
so
know
I
that.
started on that, which is mesalamine. I've been on Imuron. I've been on
I'm on that one.
azathioprine.
Yep.
I've been on 6-MP, which is mercaptopurine.
Mm,
Um, so I don't know which came first, but definitely the prednisone and one of those medications got my stricture to open, and I was able to eat,
good.
started gaining weight again, started feeling normal. Um,
No. No. Perfectly normal to listen while preparing
Great.
dinner. We'll be to the bloody stool portion next. So prepare yourself, Richard.
Um,
I know that's how it feels right there. That sound is how you feel.
um, but yeah, so that's how they got the stricture to open. I started gaining weight again, was able to eat, but they really don't tell you about the mental side of accepting a
Yes.
diagnosis, especially
Yes.
when you're 20 years old. Your
Right.
doctor is 2 hours away because I have to go back to college. So,
Right.
like, I can't see him as regularly as I, would like. And the mental part, I did not want to accept the fact that I had a diagnosis, that I had this disease, and that I had to take all this medication because I was on like 6 pills, had
Yeah.
to, take back
Yeah.
all of these drugs where I had never really been sick before, and I had to do all of these things now. That was extremely hard.
What
So
was mentally speaking, what was the first day, week, month like after they said the words? Because here's the thing, I think, and again, I'm just gonna explain it quickly from the way I think about it, and then you give your same explanation of how you came at it. Nothing prepares you for someone walking in the room and telling you that you now are gonna have something the rest of your life. And the best
for the
part,
rest of your
there's
life,
no cure.
no cure. You have to
No
take
cure.
drugs for the rest of your
The rest
life.
of your life, and they may not last forever, right? Because I also had a stricture at the same time I had my fistulas, and I will never forget Dr. Deepak coming in and going, I think I can get your stricture opened up and the fistulas to stop on Remicade. We can get that under control. He said, but I'm warning you now, like any drug, if you're on it long term, at some point it loses efficacy and we'll need to look at something else. And I can't guarantee anything else will be as effective. And so there may be a point where you lose section by section parts of your intestine until you go to an ostomy. And I'm just going to tell you now, that's a lot. Like when you've
Yeah,
gone from you might have lupus, which is my route.
yeah.
You might have lupus to that was like, I'm sorry, what? Like how did we get to ostomy? But anyway, that's just a lot to take in.
Yeah, and then, like, because like I said about the biologics, there weren't any options, like, any other options,
Right.
for me after, Remicade. Can I take him outside
Oh,
really
please.
quick?
My gosh, yes. I'm going to read some comments. Yes, go take
Okay.
baby out. We're good. We're good. Regina says, Morgan Lee, psychological burden is so heavy. My BFF's husband told her if she commits suicide, he will kill all her animals. That's how serious her depression was. That makes me so sad. I 100% believe that, Regina. Some of the darkest times I've had for myself, and I've been pretty open about my mental health, some of my mental health struggles. I had a suicide attempt in my 20s. I visited about that on a live stream a couple of years ago. And then I've had some pretty tough bouts with depression since. But one of the worst was after diagnosis. It was just a bad time. It's scary and lonely. And there's the feeling that you're a burden on people that I think is sort of at least for me, that was a step I had to get past. I remember when Ricky and I were getting married was around the time I was diagnosed. So he and I had a lot of discussions about like, are you sure you want to marry me? And he kept being like, I don't care about your bloody butthole. And I was like, well, you should. But I think that's so true, that there's a lot to the acceptance that I don't think people consider.
Yeah.
Just because you kind of think, oh, well, you get diagnosed and you move on, and it's not quite that simple.
Yeah.
So you're on all these medications, you're in college. How obvious, besides the obvious, how were you impacted? Like, how was your college experience impacted by this change?
It made everything a lot harder. Like things were already hard, but it made everything a lot harder because alcohol and Crohn's don't mix, and
Exactly.
alcohol and drugs
Yeah.
don't mix either. So I would the first like 5 years of my diagnosis, I was extremely rebellious, and I
Right.
just did not want to accept.
Follow the rules
I
and do
didn't
the,
want
yeah,
to take it.
yeah,
I didn't want to, because I'm in college. I wanted to, hang out with people and, do have that
yeah,
like experience, drink with
yeah.
them and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
of course. That's part of it's like a rite of passage.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
like I was still doing all of that and I was making my disease worse
right.
because I wouldn't take my medication on time. I'd forget this pill's too big. I don't want to swallow it. I want to go out with my friends. So it just made everything a lot harder. And I think um that was probably around the first time I ever really dealt with depression.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was
So when you went through that, did you go to EAP on camp? Were you going to like campus resources? How did you get out of that? Did you go lean into church? What was your space that you went to try to climb out of that depression?
in college, there was nothing. I didn't do anything in college.
That is bleak. So you
Yeah,
just pushed through. Wow.
I ignored. I wouldn't even call it, like, pushing through, 'cause, I know I think I told it in the video that I did, but, like, I think the first 2, 3 years, I had pretty much given up on, like, life.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest. Um, so yeah, I wasn't taking my medicine. I was doing whatever. I wasn't going to therapy. I wasn't trying to fix anything. And then I guess yeah, I did get into church when my cousin approached me and was like, "I think you're going to die. If you need to change. Like something has to change,
Yeah.
or you're going to die." And then that really struck me. And then after that, I did start going to church, and that turned things around. Not immediately, because I think during that time, too, before um, I didn't have really good health insurance, so medication was really expensive.
Yes.
So that was another factor why I wasn't taking it. And I was just like,
Of course.
I can't do
Of
this.
course. How do you pay for it?
Yeah.
I, a little statistic that I read, and I like to bring it up just so people think about it. The average out-of-pocket cost for people who are insured with Crohn's disease is somewhere between 8 and 12,000 a year. That is the out-of-pocket cost. Now that includes everything, but that gives you an idea of how much it can cost, even with insurance. Now, some insurances are better than others. So, like Ricky and I now don't have anywhere near that in outlay every year, but it's still significant. We still use a healthy chunk of our salary every year to go into an HSA because colonoscopies are expensive, MRIs are expensive. Even just getting the chest X-rays they have me do every once in a while, any of
Mhm.
the little stuff, you'd be surprised it adds up, and you have deductibles you have to meet. So, and at that age, like me at your age, I had a very high deductible plan because I was paying for it. Hi, Emma. Good to see you. I had a high deductible plan. So, like you, when I was going through the worst and they put me on something to kind of get it back together, well, heck, I couldn't afford the $7,000 deductible. Like, no, I wasn't going to go to the doctor. I'll just bleed from my
Yeah.
anus. Welcome, Emma. Good time to pop in.
Yeah,
Um,
and I didn't have a job, so I didn't
yeah,
have any insurance, and
yeah.
then the medication I was on at that time was $400 a month
Oh my
just
gosh.
for, like, the pills, and I was like, I can't do that."
No, and who can? I mean, I totally get it. So yes, very grateful for NHS. Yes, 100%. I wish we had something equivalent here.
Yeah.
Um, well, that's a lot. So you get out of that period. have you had flares in that time, or any that were like terrible, or was it all
I
manageable
think
kind
that
of
whole
bouts?
I think that whole time was flare. Like, I'm pretty sure
Oh
that
my
whole
god.
time was active disease from probably around, like probably since diagnosis. Like, I took the medication enough for it to heal a little bit, but
Yeah,
then, like,
to
after
feel
that, like
better enough. Yeah.
yeah, after that I
Yep.
stopped, and I'm pretty sure I
Yeah.
was in active flare until I started my first biologic, which was Humira in 2014,
Okay.
because I got a
And
job
was
in
Hu
insurance.
and was Humira self-injectable then, or was
Yes.
it, it was, okay.
Yeah, it was the
So
and you just shot it in
yep.
your
So
tissues.
how was Humira for you? Was that effective?
It was effective until pattern, until I stopped taking my medication.
Mm.
But the reason I stopped this time was because people telling me that I shouldn't be taking medication. But yeah.
So explain that. Give me that. Give me the highlights of that. So, and because here's the thing, um the vlog for me that comes out this week talks about this topic, just about the stuff that we're fed, misinformation that we're fed, and specifically what I was talking about in the vlog with this week was about the vulnerable the most vulnerable time for me as a patient, when I was the most susceptible to really dangerous bad ideas, was when I
Mhm.
was first diagnosed. And it's in that stage before you accept, where you're kind of open to like, oh, this guy on YouTube fixed his Crohn's with broccoli and
Yep.
some yoga, so I could do that, right? I mean, that's kind of the level of where I was at that time, and that's kind of what I'm talking about this week. And Morgan's story kind of inspired this idea for me in the first place, because I knew this already. But tell everybody a little bit about how you were influenced out of your medications and into a flare.
Okay. So, like I mentioned before, getting into church um, kind of saved my life at the point of no longer not listening to doctors and like actually like taking my medicine in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, and I am a part of a very evangelical, Bible believing, God heals type of church, type of atmosphere. Um, so like it basically got, fed to me that if I believe enough, pray enough that God is going to heal me, and like plant-based, do yoga, and you can reverse your Crohn's. And basically, just out of all of the messaging of all these people like surrounding me, like in my church, who have these, radical miracle testimonies of like, oh, I was healed of this and I was healed of that. And all I did was pray. And then you start to believe that. And you're like, okay, so maybe my Crohn's isn't better because I'm not believing enough.
I
Maybe
don't
I'm
believe enough. Right,
right.
right. You
I'm
blame
not
yourself.
doing
It's an
this enough.
inward. Right.
Yeah, and it gets real toxic real
Yeah.
fast because
Yeah.
you start blaming yourself because I'm not doing enough.
Right.
I'm not being a good enough Christian.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Mm. You're not
Yes. And
believing
and
enough. You're relying too much on those doctors and those drugs. Like, yeah, just pray
basically
it away. Um,
basically pray the pain away. Yeah.
yeah, and I didn't want to take Humira. I was very, very, very adamant that I didn't wanna do it. The injections, they didn't hurt that bad, but, like, I didn't like having to do them myself, and it was just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this isn't a reason not to do this anymore."
Right. Right.
So, I hired a nutritionist, and I was like, "I'm gonna go plant-based, and she's gonna tell me how to, reverse my Crohn's,"
Did
and
it. Was vegan for a number of years. Did it. I mean, I didn't know it was Crohn's then. I was just trying everything and anything, thinking it was IBD, but did the same thing. Same thing.
yeah.
Yep.
So, I stopped taking my Humira,
Uh,
um, and I don't know, what kicked off the flare. I always attribute it to eating a meal at Fuddruckers, which is a burger place.
I love Fuddruckers. That always makes me so sad when I hear the story because I'm just like, oh.
And because like I was not the same until after
Oh.
that hamburger.
Oh.
But yeah, it kicked off the worst flare of my life. I lost, I think, around 40 pounds that time. So my lowest
Oh,
weight then
no.
was I was down to 76 pounds. Um,
Morgan.
I had an infection like in my anus. I had a
Oh my gosh.
perianal fissure.
Fistula?
Not I don't think it
Oh,
was a fistula.
a fissure. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Fissure and like a pocket of like infection,
Yep.
like an
Yep.
abscess right
Yep.
there
A
that I
fissure can grow into a fistula because it'll if she hadn't treated it, it would have tunneled upwards in, which is what happened to me, and it wasn't treated. So it tunnels up into your intestines, and then you just have a live drain
yeah.
from your intestines that you cannot control because there's no sphincter there. You're welcome. There's an image. Go ahead, Morgan. Sorry I interrupted. Fissures are very painful though. I mean, same
Yes.
pain level, like
Yeah.
impossible to sit.
I
Yeah.
couldn't sit. I was sitting
Oh my
off
gosh.
to the right
Yeah.
side. It was on
Oh
the
yeah.
left.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
and I was like,
Yep.
oh, is it hemorrhoids? What is that?
I
don't
know. And oh.
And then,
Been
but
there.
I'm not going to the doctor. I'm just like,
Right.
oh, it's fine. Let me just pray it away. We're good. But yeah, I had an infection. It was just awful. So I went back to the doctor, found out that because I stopped Humira when I had built up antibodies.
Antibodies. Oh no, you
So
couldn't go back on.
I didn't go back on Humira.
Oh gosh.
I tried, didn't work. So couldn't go back on Humira. And that was the worst flare of my life. So that landed me back in the hospital. And I stayed there, I think 5 days that time too, to get
Oh
the infection
geez.
under control.
Sure, sure.
Mm,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Well, and
Well,
real quick, just another, I'm giving a bunch of context. I keep jumping in case someone's listening to this and doesn't know. When we say antibodies, so what happens on these biologics is you have to get on them and stay on them. The moment you get off and there's a gap, your body immediately starts to develop antibodies to its efficacy in the future. So, for example, my big gap in coverage this year on Remicade, every single day was like torture
mm,
because the fear I had was when I went back, what if it didn't work?
yep.
Right. And I always fear that. I will never not fear going off
Me
Remicade.
neither.
The conversation I had with Deepak was once you're off of Remicade, you can try everything else that there is. I cannot guarantee you that it won't end in strictures,
Yep.
removal surgeries of your intestines and ultimately an ostomy, which I want to be very clear. I am in no way anti-ostomy. And when that's my time, if that is my time, I'll be fine. Like, bring it on. I will be making all kinds of jokes about how I pooped while we're live streaming. You just wait for it. But I also know that that's something that I need to like be ready for. And like, I know how hard it was to get to this point in my life. I definitely do not want to get there early or ahead of myself being mentally ready. So pardon that interruption, but that is the antibodies thing. I just wanted to make the point clear. That gap for Morgan, essentially following that path opened up a window where the drug that had worked was no longer effective.
Yes.
So, and yes, how toxic, how quickly, because when you're in pain and you're being told that your faith is the reason you're in pain,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, I cannot imagine that level of pain because it would feel like God smiting you. In fact, I think I said to Ricky multiple times, what did I do to deserve this? Like, what did
Right.
I do? So I can't even imagine. I just can't even imagine it, you know? Um, uh, it's just, I'm so sorry. That is
Yeah.
just wild. So how did you get out of that? How did you re like re-channel yourself back into, okay, I gotta get on a biologic. I gotta like, they're wrong. I love them, love my church, love God, but that ain't it. Like, how did you make that pivot?
Um, that that was hard. Um, yeah. I mean, I started Remicade probably like 3 months after that because of authorization.
Right.
Um, and then I realized that I couldn't keep doing
Yeah.
this, and I feel like that flare kind of started my like a shift in my mind and how I view things, like, through my religious lens.
Hmm.
Um, and I started to have a different relationship with, like, the idea of healing and the idea of disability. And, like, I started to question, like, well, where does disability fit in the church? Because everybody who prays is not healed. Like, I'm not going to be healed.
Right.
Because I have, like, a memory of, like, during a healing service of not going up, because I used to go up all the time of, like, okay, this is the day. Crohn's is going to be healed today. And then, like, the first time I didn't go up there, I'm like, well, I don't need that. Like, I don't need it to just go away, because it's okay. Disability
Yeah.
is okay. Sickness is
Yeah.
okay. Sometimes
Yeah.
you got to take medicine. Um, and yeah, it just kinda started out as, like, a slow shift of mind, and then it just kind of it's still unraveling, like, today, so, yeah.
How do you think your so disability, you use my magic word that I love. So how long in your Crohn's process before you took ownership of the word disability for yourself?
That is a very recent development, I feel. Um, well, not too recent. I'd say probably around, like,
Yeah.
2018. So, however many years ago that was.
Yeah.
6? Um,
6.
yeah. Because around that time is when I started discovering other things about myself, about, like, um
Let's talk about those. What were the other things that came to light after the fact?
just different, like, diagnoses. Like,
Right.
um, I discovered that I am autistic. I have autism. I was late diagnosed in 2021, but realized it probably around that 2018 time when I was working with autistic kids.
Mhm.
Um, like ADHD,
Mhm.
um, OCD,
Mhm.
and then, like, joint hypermobility slash
Yep.
Ehlers-Danlos syndrome,
Yep.
and all of that is connected. Like,
Yes.
it just made me start to actually think about disability in a different way and healing in a different way, and that it wasn't something to be ashamed of, and it's not something to be eradicated all the
Right.
time. Like, we don't have to
Right.
eradicate it in order for us to live, like, full lives and to
Right.
be valued as humans.
Right.
So,
Right. And
yeah.
be seen. I always say all the time I have like disability pride or but as far as if you're looking at yourself, has disability in any way had helped you to level up in some aspect of your life or is it the reason for anything in your life that you can see that is or would not be possible without that disability?
I don't think that I'd be the person that I am today without disability.
Yeah.
I feel like, even through all of the crap, like, it's made me a lot stronger,
Yeah.
and it all has also helped, like, me have the ability to look at look at life or look at a situation and assess the risks and benefits, which is something my doctor says all the time, especially, like, when it comes to medication. Like, you have to assess the risk
Yep.
versus the benefit. Like,
Right.
yeah, like, there could be side effects, this could happen, but, like, look at the alternative. Like,
Right.
you've been the alternative before,
It's not
like,
fun.
it's
Right.
not. And it's like, sometimes you just gotta be able to deal with those things. So,
Yes.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's just made me able to see the world and see things in a different way. That it's made me stronger and it's made me more resilient,
Mhm.
and, like, I have the ability to do things I didn't think that I could do.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I am proud of being disabled, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being proud of being disabled.
No.
We're
Yeah.
saying the word disabled, like, it's
Right.
okay.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
There is a stigma in our community, not in our community, but like in our society at large, about disability, or at least I grew up in a time where there was a stigma around disability. And I grew up, you and I have talked about this not on live streams, but in growing up, I grew up in a really religious environment as well. And although we didn't go quite as deep on the healing portion, we still were like okay with medicine and whatnot. There was a large portion of sort of moving disability out of sight in
Mhm.
our religious in the upbringing in the Southern Baptist Church. And I it's an odd thing to think about now because it's changed so much and they've come a long way on that issue specifically. But even biblically, there's kind of it has to be fixed sort of
Right.
thing around it, and that in and of itself is a little unhealthy.
Mhm.
And or not a little, it is unhealthy
Unhealthy.
to
Yeah.
think that's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And that's specifically the piece I wanted to talk about because again, you had such an extreme experience with it. But each of us at different points on the journey, I guarantee, have been in that vulnerable state where self-doubt opens up enough where the misinformation or the snake oil salesmen, as I call them, who hop into our Instagram comments with, have you tried? Have you tried? Have you
Mhm.
tried? We've tried it all. We're good. I'm going to
Yeah,
go back to
it's
Remicade.
okay.
Like I've tried it.
Well, just accept, like, you have to just
Yep.
accept what is, like,
Yes.
this is it,
In
I
order
have
to move
Crohn's
on.
disease.
Right. And it's
Okay,
okay.
let's do
Right.
this.
And it's okay. Exactly. Regina says, regarding disability, my friend was diagnosed in '05. In the last 2 months, she finally resigned her last job. She was
Mm,
working 4 hours a week and her husband convinced her to apply for disability. Good for her.
yeah.
Good for her. It's there for that reason. You're allowed to be proud of dealing with life, even though you have a crushing disease in spite of it.
Mhm.
Yes, to all of that energy. Oh gosh, I should have checked before I pulled it. Never be ashamed of being disabled. Own that terminology. There's a lot worse things you could be. French for one. Richard, as he would say to bloody French. Um, well, so let's talk a little bit about, neurodivergence. Let's talk about, is there any intersectionality between those two, or how has discovering your neurodivergent changed the way you look at your Crohn's and IBD story?
Um, Let me see. Mhm. I thought about this question earlier. Why am I blanking? Um, so first, so I want to explain which neurodivergence I have
Yeah.
because neurodivergent is an umbrella term that consists of a lot of different disorders.
Yeah.
So I am autistic, I have ADHD, and I have OCD. So I don't really think that my neurodivergence has changed my outlook on it and how I look at my IBD. It mainly just makes more sense that I have IBD
Yes.
because autism and gut issues go hand in hand.
I did
And
not know that. That's
yes,
interesting.
yeah, most autistic people have some kind of stomach issues.
I didn't know that.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah, and ADHD and OCD are sometimes
Mhm.
seen as comorbid disorders with autism as well. Um, and my OCD likes to think about the worst possible, scenarios of my Crohn's disease,
Yep.
and I get very it gets very fixated on the like what I'm eating and assessing all of my symptoms and assessing like everything that I feel and waiting for that other shoe to drop. Like, when's Remicade going to stop working? When are you going to have a flare up? And it's just like always like waiting for that to happen. So
Yeah.
that is kind of
Catastrophizing.
how, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That is how it kind of affects my IBD. So
Mhm.
that kind of goes in hand with that. But
That's interesting. Here, let's see. It went so long underdiagnosed because it's intersectionality of things
yes,
too. Anxiety was given credit for a long while for me.
same.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a lot of, and I guess regarding anxiety, because I was diagnosed with anxiety a long time ago. I laugh about that now because when you've spent the majority of your life like scoping out where you can take a quick shit, you like anxiety comes along with that. Like
Hmm.
you're just a naturally anxious person.
Yeah.
So,
Because you have to
I
be like
just
hyper vigilant, like, oh, I
all
have to be
the time.
prepared.
All the
Yeah.
time. So let's say a few weeks ago, I absolutely love this actually. About no, it was 2 months ago now. It was in February. I had my first shared room in a long time
Mhm.
at Infusion, and I had a kid who was getting, well, kid, 14 years old, so teenager, who was
Mhm.
getting their first Remicade. And I remember him asking me for advice. And so, me, I gave entirely too much more than he was at. He was probably being conversational. I was like, okay, let's start with Pedialyte in the mornings before you come. Two, no coffee. Anyway, um, but what would you say if you were in that chair next to a young crony or some person who was recently diagnosed, especially those people that fall in that like self doubt stage of like where you're susceptible to all the BS? What would you say to someone?
Um, Let me see. I think the main thing that I would say is whatever you are feeling at this moment is valid, and
Yeah.
don't let anyone gaslight you into not feeling how you're feeling. You can be angry, you can be sad, you can
Yep.
be pissed off, you can not want
Yep.
to do it. Um, Whatever you're feeling is okay. And
Yeah.
then that it's going no, I don't think I was gonna say it's gonna get easier, but it might not get easier
Yeah. It might
before
not.
before yeah, it just might not get easier. Um, but the next piece of advice I would give is to not take a doctor's word as gospel, like the first word. Like, don't get a second opinion. Don't
On
be
everything.
afraid to ask
Yeah.
for a second opinion. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. If something doesn't make sense, if that something doesn't feel right, if you're not feeling heard, if you're being dismissed and
Mm,
your symptoms, your pain is not being taken seriously, don't be afraid to go to somebody else. Don't be
yeah.
afraid.
Yeah.
Um, because doctors are not always the best.
Nope. No. And
Yeah.
sometimes, sometimes it's with the best of intentions too, right? I mean, sometimes it doesn't even have to be. So it's not even like you'll feel like they're the snarling villain in the movie. Like it's not going to be that way because they're, a bad doctor can just be a bad doctor and they
Mm.
still may come across as capable and they probably are. It's just they're not the right one for you. I always say you have to like your GI enough to talk about your butt with them, like very openly, and your poop, which again, sort of an awkward conversation. And yet, every time my GI walks in the room, the first thing he says, "How you pooping?" And that's how we start. And so, but that works for me, right? And it may not
Yeah.
work for everybody else. Someone else may be mortified by that and be like, "Ah, how dare you? Let's show a little leg first." But I think, you know, like your GI, feel good about them. I totally agree with Morgan. In fact, I would even say you're going to be angry. I still
You're
get
gonna
angry.
be angry. Yeah.
Okay, like I'm going through a thing right now where I'm going to go see a dermatologist. I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up with a brand new autoimmune disease. Go me. But because once you get one, you
They
start to
just
get
be
lots of
common.
them. They start piling up. They start piling up. It's just like your body's like, wait a minute, I found something new. So I agree with you. I never would say the thing about it gets better because we just don't know, and there are
No.
totally bad days. What I always say is, I always try to remind myself, I will have a good day soon. And like, even if today is a bad day, I will have a good day soon. Like that, I can always guarantee. There's always a good day ahead. May not have many of them, but you'll get them.
Yeah.
So
And
I love
another
that
one
advice.
is that don't be afraid to ask for accommodations from people in
Yes.
your life and, like, work, wherever. Yeah.
When you're in
Don't be
college.
don't suffer in
No.
silence because you feel embarrassed or you don't wanna put people
Mm-mm.
out.
Nope.
If you need something, like, ask for those accommodations.
Definitely. Definitely. And the one thing, again, this is always too much information, but I always say to people, you're also going to poop your pants at some point, and that's okay. Like, it's going to happen,
At work.
and like,
Happened.
at school, at work, I can think of several places it's happened, and
I
it
was
is
like,
not
oh,
great. Yep. You're like, awesome.
time to go home.
Time to go home. I'd suffer in silence. That makes my heart sad.
Yeah.
I told this kid, I said that there was a time, I again now know that I was in flare, but I distinctly remember being at work, went to the bathroom to throw up because I had what I thought was, or probably was, the flu, but I didn't realize how that impacted the control of the rest of my body.
Oh my gosh. I have a similar story.
Both ends for almost an hour. And then I had people coming in trying,
like, oh no.
same. I had people come in trying to help me. I had to call my roommate and say, bring clothes to the bathroom. I wouldn't come out of the bathroom, basically like cordon myself into it. Oh, it was terrible.
Oh,
Absolutely
gosh.
terrible. I'm blushing just thinking about having to use those paper towels. It was just a lot. That was a day, but it's okay. You will survive.
You will. You'll learn to laugh about it.
Laugh at it and just be like, oh, that was a wild day.
Wherever you go, it's fine.
Wherever. Poor Tiffany on those group messages sometimes. It's just like, how did I end up here? But it happens. It happens. So, well, that's good advice. I like that. That's intense. We got a question from Regina. I think we have two. We do all poop. Like, we do. Everybody does it. It's okay. It's a lot of fun. So Regina had a question. I liked it. Do y'all get esophageal thrush when taking prednisone? I did, and I do actually have esophageal problems. Sometimes I get acid reflux is one of my new Crohn's presentations. So dealing with this one now, Regina.
I didn't think about that as a Crohn's presentation.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, I guess it is.
It is 100%.
Yeah. I don't remember. It's been too long since I've taken prednisone for this question.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't remember if mine started then or not, Regina. I was on prednisone in 2019. And so not that long ago. I mean, I was still only 29. But I I will say I don't remember if that's when it started. I think I just always had a problem with, or I think I had problems before that, because I did have times where I'd have really bad, what I thought was just like awful heartburn, that I'm like, no, that was probably my esophagus like inflamed.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do have acid reflux issues, but my Crohn's is mostly like in my ileum, in my small bowel.
Oh, okay, yeah, which is fairly common, I think. That's kind of where it's okay. So Regina says, my BFF gets major thrush from prednisone and Crohn's ulcers in her mouth. Oh no, an esophagus. She's been written up in a medical journal. Crohn's everywhere. Oh, that breaks my heart. That breaks my heart. I'm in a few studies. Ricky laughs every time because I poop in a Cool Whip jar. Well, I call it a Cool Whip jar. It looks like a Cool Whip tub.
Yeah.
Then I ship it off. And so, but for a day, I have to be very explicit about what's in that container in the fridge. Be like, don't touch it, Ricky. Don't touch it. Let's see, what did you say? I was only on prednisone for a short while. I didn't notice any side effects, but super short, like 2 weeks. Oh, okay. My face got chubby. I had terrible mood swings.
Yeah.
You remember it's like some mood swings. Poor Ricky is the sweetest, most calm person in the world. And there were 3 times while I was on prednisone where we fought to the point where like I had him, I've never seen him that angry in response. And then finally he would get calm and be like, this is the drugs talking, not you. He'd leave and go cool off. But yeah, it was scary. Yeah, Cool Whip. I know. It took her doctor weeks to order a special medicine to ease the pain in her mouth and throat. Oh, that breaks my heart, Regina. Because I know when it presents there, that would be just awful. Not good. Yeah, prednisone. It was real. It was very, very real. And I had to taper off. So like it took a while to go on. It took a while to go off. And
yeah.
And then you're all
glad I don't have to take that anymore. Well, not recently.
Exactly. You also have the home infusions, which I'm super jealous of. I do love that. Have you liked that?
Yeah. I mean, I liked going to the clinic though, because I
Oh, you
got
did?
snacks and people
Oh,
gave
yeah.
me,
Yeah, yeah.
you
Warm
know.
blankets. Yeah,
Yeah, that was kinda nice. So I
yeah,
was kind of against the home, infusion for a while, but I do like them. I
yeah,
like my nurse.
yeah.
Um, mhm.
That was funny. We were on a group chat, and Morgan said her nurse came to her house for the first time without a mask, and Morgan didn't
Oh
recognize
my
her.
gosh.
And I was like, she'd only been coming to your house for a couple of years,
She's
and
been
you had
coming to
no
my
idea.
house for, like, 4 years, and I'm just
No
like,
idea.
"Who are you?" Wow.
I kind of love that. What's so last question for you before we kind of wrap things up. And I guess my biggest one is this. Is there any part of your writing is your passion, right? That's your thing. That's kind of where
Yeah.
your happy place is. Is there any part of your Crohn's or your IBD that you think will ever make its way into a story?
Yes. I
Good.
technically have a whole book about person with IBD. It's a romance novel.
Oh, I love it.
So I'm still planning on writing that one. Um, but it kind of mirrors my story, but not the romance part of it. But
Yeah.
um of she's like trying to come to grips with being diagnosed in college. Um, but basically she gets out of a bad relationship because the guy is a jerk and abusive and doesn't want to accept her diagnosis, doesn't want to deal with it. And then
Oh,
she finds love and accepts her diagnosis and lives happily ever after. And yes, JC,
yes, it was.
that one.
Yes.
Skeleton in the Bathroom is the working title.
Oh, I love it. I think you should publish.
Yeah, I'd have to finish it, but
Well, it's again, we'll go through book 3.
yeah, book 3 is needs to be done first.
Do you so that one specifically, will that be the only one? Is it a one-off, or do you see yourself ever incorporating it into stories? Hey, welcome, Cat Paw.
Um,
Like a series of any kind?
I don't know. There's a lot of it might be done probably either in like short stories or poetry rather than like a full length like series.
I
But
know.
who
I
knows?
was like, how could we work something out? I was like, could we do a collection of some kind, like Sisterhood of the Traveling Fistula, and we like all pass the story along, like who, each character gets a fistula, and we kind of take it through.
Wow.
Uh,
Colonoscopy Chronicles.
oh, I do like that. You get some great pictures, though. I always tell people, doesn't get any more close up than that. So,
Mm,
yeah, those are my best headshots. Um,
colonoscopy.
I know. I love those pictures. I'm obsessed, and I'm always trying to show them off to Ricky, and he's like, "I don't know what I'm looking at. They look like pink clouds." And I'm like, "They are." Um, all right. So tell everybody where they can find you and what's coming up. You have some big events coming up at the end of the month, which is really exciting. You've got your normal streams through the month. Oh, this is funny. None of them
Well,
pull all of the shit. Oh, this is good too.
no, it
Okay,
is.
sorry, Morgan. I stepped on your line. Oh,
Um,
I love that. Yeah, same.
oh, yeah.
Well,
Um,
take it away.
So, yeah, like I said, my name is Morgan Lee. You can find me here on YouTube on my channel at Author Morgan Lee. Author JC Carpenter and I are hosting a poetry open mic night at the end of the month on April 28th on my channel at 4 Central, 5 Eastern. And you can sign up. There is a link for the form on my community tab if you want to sign up to read your poetry. And I don't know what else I have coming up. I might do some more pop-ups during the month.
Yes.
And yeah, maybe vlog. I don't know.
Well, good. I love a vlog. We love a
Yeah.
good Morgan vlog. Give it to us. Give it to us. All right. Well, this is gut instinct. We try to meet, whenever. Uh, don't want to get too regular. Don't want to get you guys used to any kind of schedule. I do have a couple of people, though, that have nibbled on the option of coming on, some of them from AuthorTube Space, which I was very excited to have some folks reach out. That was exciting. One of which I did not know was an IBD person. So I was like, oh, okay. But looking forward to that. I do vlogs once a week, so check those out. Enjoy them. What else do I do? Shorts sometimes. Karaoke with Margaret next Saturday. And then Writer's Room is on Tiffany's channel this month.
Mm-hmm.
So look for that. We have a great idea, actually, that sounded like a whole lot of fun. So we're going to do something different this time. That's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope you'll join us for that. It's a writing extravaganza. Well, I just saw that our dear friend, Esther Marie Andujar, just went live. So if you're with us here, please scurry over to Esther's stream and enjoy her low-key productivity day. Morgan, thank you for joining me. I will bring you back with me again at some point because I think I want to do some panel discussions on different things, mental health and stuff. So I will reach out to you to come back to me again in the future. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And everyone out there, be healthy and well. We will see you soon. Bye.